This episode is brought to you by Flex Dealer.
When I took over the store, we were selling probably about 9 to 10 EVs a month, and we've taken it all the way up to 35 EVs in 1 month.
Hey gang, welcome to this episode of the Dealer Playbook Podcast. I'm sitting down with my new pal Moose. He is the general manager at Lithia Hyundai of Fresno. We're going to be talking all things EVs. Stay tuned. Moose, my man, thanks so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook.
Excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You reached out to me the other day and we talked a little bit back and forth and now here we are. I've never had anybody named Moose on the podcast, but almost kind of near and dear to my Canadian heritage. First and foremost, little get to know you. Where'd the name Moose come about?
Yeah. So, my full name is Mustafa. And when I was playing Pee Wee football, Pop Warner football, my coaches were telling me, hey, that's a long name, too many syllables to yell out in the field. And so they said, hey, we're going to call you Moose. And so I said, all right, let's do it.
And then it just stuck.
Even my mother, my grandmother, I'm known by Moose. Sometimes when I'm it's funny, if I'm like in a dental office and they call me by my full name, sometimes it just goes right over my head and my wife will go, hey, that's you. I go, oh yeah, that's right.
I love it. It's somewhere along the way, Michael Cirillo went from Michael to Mike to MC. Now everybody just calls me MC. And I caught myself the other day thinking to myself and referring to myself as MC. And I was like, well, when it sticks, it sticks. So I was like, if Moose stuck, that's it. You're Moose.
There you go.
Getting into the car business, how long have you been into in the business?
About over 20 years now.
Dang, 20 years. How'd you get into it?
I started off as a lot porter at a little old Mercedes store and just parking cars, and worked my way over to the wash rack. Back then we called it the wash rack, and just kind of worked my way up and realized that this was more than a job, and it just became a career, and just started moving up the ranks and, going for that ultimate goal. And here I am.
Yeah. And here you are in one of the largest dealer groups ever at Lithia. Give us a little insider. What's it like working inside a store that exists inside of such a massive group?
Yeah, I worked for a corporate-owned store before. I worked for Penske and for Sonic Automotive, great companies. A lot more corporate structured as far as like autonomy. With Lithia, it's the largest dealer group in the world, and they give their general managers a lot more autonomy, and so it almost feels like you're not so much ran by a corporation. You're able to use your creativity and all that. So it's exciting. It's fun. They allow us to kind of run free and obviously within a framework and a playground. But yeah, it's definitely, it's fun. It's exciting. We're able to really utilize our creativity.
I love that you said, and I just want to touch on this because this is really an undercurrent to the show and the topics that we discussed before we get into EVs. You said it went from a job to a career.
Yes.
At what point, what were maybe some pivotal moments for you where you realized, oh wait, like this can be the thing?
When I started seeing my leaders and managers in roles and seeing their success, their wealth, and that it all came from, humble beginnings of being a car washer or a salesperson. And so that's when it started to click and hit me that, why not me, and that's when it motivated me to start focusing on getting to those leadership roles.
Yeah, I can see, I've got your LinkedIn up in front of me. You posted a recap, some of your thoughts on the unforgiving race to greatness winning. And as I scroll through and I see posts about leadership, it's clear that personal development and growth mindset is really important to you. Is that as a result of working within the retail auto industry for 20 years, or was that maybe baked into you from an early age, pre-car business?
But yeah, I guess you can say it was baked in me pre-car business, just from being in competitive sports and just always competing in football and things like that. Um, but I guess along the way, I ran into some really good leaders as well, and they've instilled in me just being a leader, trying to make a difference in other people's lives. And that's kind of what I've been doing still till this day. Matter of fact, this morning I read a chapter summary to my one of my teams. I oversee the Nissan store as well, so I read a nice little my chapter summary this morning to them, and I think it really touched them, a lot of them. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
It's you say something that resonates deeply with me, which is, that this idea of leadership is not so much do what I tell you to do as much as it is let me demonstrate the behavior that I hope that you follow. And in so doing, we achieve these universal laws of success. Like you said about what you were observing, these people that come from humble beginnings, and the car business, if they really grasp onto it, provides a roadmap for them whereby they can now create wealth for themselves. And what you just said, which I love, is then being able to help make a difference for others, which I think is so cool. And I mean, there's kind of a parallel, if I could use this as a segue into EVs, going from humble beginnings to juggernaut is kind of analogous of Hyundai. Because if I go back 20 years, maybe 25 years, and I think Hyundai, I think tin can. I think, what's this thing made out of sheet metal? What is happening here? And then somewhere seemingly overnight, obviously we know it wasn't overnight, but somewhere along the way from that humble entry into our market, into the American market, Hyundai has become the pinnacle of what success looks like for an automaker. Expanding into luxury brands, and now, as I understand it, achieving the number 2 spot for EV sales, which, I mean, that in and of itself is a difficult feat. Talk to me about how that happens. What are you seeing from an EV perspective as far as adoption, and are we getting to a place where people are really starting to adopt at the level that we think they are, or is it all just media bias telling us that everyone wants to drive an EV? What's your take?
no, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned quite a few things there. Let's start with Hyundai. Hyundai used to be that value brand, right? It was, hey, you can't afford the other tier A brands, you would go to Hyundai. You get much less expensive, more value. Now, Hyundai, they changed the game. They're leading in technology and safety. We have multiple models that are leading the tier A brands, the top staple brands. Leading in EVs has been just in the forefront of Hyundai's vision. They started off with the Ioniq model. They start off with the Ioniq, which is not the Ioniq 5 or 6. It was just the Ioniq. They started off with the Ioniq, with the EV, and it had about, I think, 100 miles range or something like that. And they tested that out for years and years, and then switched to a plug-in and hybrid components and things like that. So they spent a lot of time in the EV world. And so that's where I always mention to everybody that Hyundai truly invested the time in creating one of the best electric vehicles. And they really care a lot about being a good quality car company and creating a good quality product, versus some of the other EVs have rushed a little bit into the EV game, and they kind of maybe sacrificed quality and things like that. As far as the adopting EV, my store is in the Central Valley. And so it's a little bit tougher to adopt the EV culture here versus my previous stores where I managed Hyundai stores in the Bay Area. A lot quicker to the technology there, right? And so there in the Bay Area, you have more charging stations, the infrastructures, the culture of EV, charging stations at workplaces, things like that. Here in the Central Valley, where my store is located, you have farms all around us, blue collar, and so it's a little bit different. It's the culture is not there. It's still not there. However, you can create the culture just by spreading the word. You can, and that's what we've done here for the last 14 months.
Hey, does your marketing agency suck? Listen, before we hop back into this episode, I know you know me as the host of the Dealer Playbook, but did you also know that I'm the CEO of Flex Dealer, an agency that's helping dealers capture better quality leads from local SEO and hyper-targeted ads that convert? So if you want to sell more cars and finally have a partner that's in it with you that doesn't suck, visit flexdealer.com. Let's hop back into this episode. I'm thinking about this interview that I stumbled upon. It was Tucker Carlson, and I can't say that I'm a big, I don't really follow anything, but the headline caught me, and it was that they gave the Cybertruck to a buddy of his who's a farmer who lives on a farm, active farm, has a sawmill, hauls lumber, does all these sorts of things. The thing that I thought was really interesting, and you made me think of, speaking about rural markets, is that one of the first questions out of Tucker's mouth to this gentleman is, so could you viably replace your diesel 2500 for the Cybertruck? And immediately the guy goes, yes, I would in a heartbeat. And Tucker was, he was taken back. I thought it was kind of comedic, and not to make this about politics or where people lean, but simply that I think he was going in hoping to play into a certain narrative, and this guy that works this farm and this sawmill and tills land and hauls dirt and does all these dirty jobs, right? Immediately was like, yes, and let me show you how awesome this thing is. And he was just the take back. Do you find there's, combating the level of skepticism perhaps in a more rural market, what are some of the common challenges that you find you have to overcome in help shift that narrative?
Yeah, Mike, basically hit it spot on. That's the challenges we have faced here, and we still face. It's just the folks that drive gasoline vehicles their entire life, or diesels, and they're like, well, in EV, that's a computer on wheels. We're not interested. We just don't want to move to that direction. And so yeah, definitely those are the common challenges we face. Is just, hey, we've never had one. None of our family members have one, and we're just not ready. And so we obviously sit down, we teach, we go, hey, well, why do you feel you're not ready? And you just take the conversation from there. And so I can definitely dive into what makes our store successful in selling EVs. We have about 10 different areas where we focus in on, and we put it all together, and that's what helps us just retail EVs and get it. Yeah.
Let's get into it, because I know when you look at the landscape of auto dealers across America, Canada, majority are in rural markets. Majority of them they know they're dare I say, being forced to take an EV allocation, and they're sitting there scratching their heads saying, I'm in the back country of Alabama or Arkansas or wherever. What am I supposed to do with these? So it sounds like you've stumbled on a workflow, on a process that works. So let's dig in. You said you have 10 steps?
Just about. That's just an estimate of kind of key focus areas, which is kind of what we constantly focus on to make sure that our EV branding is there. and it's seen and in front of everyone.
Yeah, let's dig into it. So where do we start? What is
Yeah.
the first thing you want
Well,
people to?
absolutely. So with our store, when I took over the store, we were selling probably about 9 to 10 EVs a month. And we've taken it all the way up to 35 EVs in 1 month, which is, it doesn't sound like a lot of volume, but it's a big percentage increase, considering the challenges, right? Being in a rural market and near the country and farms. Um, the first thing is dealership staging is what I call it's vehicle staging. And we put all of our EVs up front in front of the dealership, made sure that they were clean, that they had, they were like spotlighted, like they looked attractive. You had different colors, different trim, all up front, so that you show that, hey, we are, we sell electric vehicles here, right? And we offer them, and it's getting them in front of the pair of eyes that walk in. Having attractive specials on the windshields is what we did. And basically when a customer would walk up to the car, they can easily see that you could purchase or lease this vehicle for a very affordable ownership option. And so we put that on every single windshield of electric vehicles that are all in the front of the dealership. So it just makes it easy. You see the vehicle, you see the pricing, you see the lease special, all together. And just easy to understand disclosures, where they just simple. We trained heavily on electric vehicle product knowledge. So that's that. A lot of stores, I believe maybe can improve in that area. There's electric vehicles are there's so many benefits. There's so much that can offer for a person. And so we train Monday through Friday for 30 minutes in the morning with our opening team. So if it's the product specialists that open that morning, they train for 30 minutes. And so in the beginning, we trained heavily on product knowledge and walkarounds and making sure that you knew the ins and outs of an electric vehicle and how to pair the feature and benefit with that specific client. So that was another big part of it. We offered every client to look at an electric vehicle. Hey, you're coming in to look at a gas Elantra or a Tucson. We have electric vehicles. Let's go take a walk, and I just want to show you the electric vehicles while we're on our way to go look at the Elantras and Tucsons. This is our current hottest product right now, and love for you to at least take a look and test drive it. It's free. We don't charge for test drives.
Right.
So just building awareness and putting it in front of everybody. Next would be the website, your website. You got to have, if you go to my website, you'll see my EVs. I have constant EV specials on my homepage, and we talk about electric vehicles. You got to have electric vehicle specials pronounced on your website. Huge with your specials. We have an electric vehicle sublink next to our inventory. So when you're at a homepage of a dealer, you at the top, you'll have like a new inventory section, a used inventory section. We have a sublink that says electric vehicle inventory. And so it makes it easy right on the homepage. You just click on electric vehicle inventory and it'll drop down, and then you kind of take it from there. We also have we created an EV educational page, and which is right in that EV sublink, where the consumers can click on it and just learn about electric vehicles and the intricacies. And there's interactive videos where it talks about common, challenges or concerns that consumers have, and it answers all of that. And then it even has a section where you can request more information. So just pretty much that's kind of a little in a nutshell of what we do and what we did here to get the EV sales up, about 300%.
Yeah, I've been ferociously, and people that listen to the show know I'm a ferocious note taker, and there's a couple of things I want to unpack a little bit more here. The first one, the overarching sentiment for me, what I love, Moose, is you're playing the long game, but it has so clearly returned more immediate gains to you. You're right. People might go, oh, 35 EVs, that's not a big deal. It's like, yeah, but it's a lot more than the 11 sitting on your lot for the last 18 months that you don't know what to do with. To go from 9 or 10 a month to 35 a month, I think is a tremendous uptick. And I would argue is disproportionate, actually, in the affirmative, disproportionate to what the growth should look like as far as EV adoption. It should be more like this. And you're talking about a hockey stick going straight up, which I think is important as it translates to you playing the long game. You said things that I love. You said spotlighting the vehicles, parking them all up front. This idea of, I may not be able to attribute it in the sense of the way we all talk about attribution now in automotive, where everything has to be a one-to-one exchange. You're like, put them up on front, because if people don't know they exist, then that doesn't help us either. Like, let's make people aware of their existence. So I love that. The electric vehicle product knowledge, Monday to Friday, 30 minutes a day. I mean, just talk about, again, long game, but approaching this with intention. You're saying, hey, like, this is a thing. Let's be intentional about it. What's that thing? Attention goes, well, I think it's about money, but in this case, attention goes where intention flows, and you're flowing intention. It sounds, that you've become very clear on, we are going to do this, and here is what we are going to do. And I think there's power in the syntax there of what versus how. I think many dealers are struggling with EVs because they're like, well, how are we going to do anything with this? And how, for me, Moose, I don't know about you, but how is too much of a philosophical word for me. Like, how? What is so much more action based. You're going, well, what can I do? I'm going to do 30 minutes of training every morning. I'm going to put them up front. I'm going to offer them to everyone. That one alone, I'm like, that there's the value for everyone listening. If they didn't get anything else, is flipping offer an EV to everyone. What's the worst that can happen? They go, oh no, I'm still interested. And like, okay, cool. It's a win-win.
I basically, when I would go shopping at other businesses and restaurants and things, I kind of just, growing up in the business, I just kind of figured out what stood out to me, what grabbed my attention, what caused me to, purchase something that I normally wouldn't. And so those are the things. It was, for example, you go to a restaurant or a fast food place, and some of them will offer you, hey, would you like the combo? Would you like to try this? And they just keep putting it out in front of the next person. Keep doing that, and you're going to get more chances of somebody purchasing that. So kind of like what you mentioned, it like, at least the least you could do is just put it out in front of everyone. That's step one, in a sense. So yeah,
dude, I am a living testament to what you just said, because bro, these bingo arms did not grow themselves. This is a long history of restaurateurs putting things in front of my face and making offers.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's like you just don't know. And I can either be, there's two sides of the fence here. I can either be on the side of the fence that laments over EVs, or I can do my part to push the product that has been allocated to me from the OEM that I've agreed to sell products for. And so I think that's really, really interesting. So we have an EV. I got my diesel truck. Maybe that's the balance in the ether in our home. I got my diesel truck and my wife drives an EV. And what I thought was interesting is, while I love my truck and I love it, I got no gripes with it, the driving experience of the EV is so unique that it almost adds like fun novelty back to the mix. And what dawned on me is now that we have a 15-year-old with a learner's permit, that his first experience driving a car, where mine was a stick shift, right? His is driving a supercomputer with wheels, like you said earlier. And for every, even though the percentages are disproportionate and EVs are not outselling gasoline vehicles, here we have now a segment of the market who has kids whose first experience driving a vehicle will be an EV vehicle, which means they will be more likely to own one in the next 5 to 10 years, which means that when they have kids in the next 15 years or 20 years, when they've got 15-year-olds, they might be more like, and now all of a sudden, what we don't realize is we're going to all look back and say, man, that happened so quick. How did that happen? Not realizing it was actually a 30-year time span in which EV adoption is now 50-50 or maybe even more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Talk to me about infrastructure. I know that's something that always comes up. I'm in Texas. We get brownouts every now and again, especially when it gets really, really hot. What is happening by way of infrastructure to ease that idea for people that, oh, well, like what happens if the power goes out, or what happens if, we don't have access to charging? How do you mitigate that as part of your conversation with guests?
Yeah, I mean that's there's no beating around the bush with that. It's power's out. You're out of luck. But how often does that happen? So it's more or less, there's lots of different companies that have come out with, charging battery packs in your home, being able to conserve your own energy and create your own energy and hold on to it at your home. So there's lots of different companies that have come out with different charging stations. We actually have companies approaching us a couple times a year at a dealer level saying, hey, we want to install charging stations at your dealership. So it's definitely moving quickly. I can see it. It's moving a lot quicker in the last 2 years as far as infrastructure. If you're in the Bay Area, I just reference that often because they're ahead with electric vehicle culture and adopting. There is a charging station almost every 5 to 10 miles, and you can pull them up on a map, and it'll show you exactly where they're located. So, but yeah, I mean, if the power goes out, like I said, I mean, there's really not much you can do. But how often does that happen? Once or twice a year, maybe in your home?
Sure. That's fair. One last thought process question I have for you here. Talking to the consumer, why? I mean, and obviously you work for a company selling products that still have gasoline powered vehicles and are really leaning heavily into EV. And I imagine you want to sell them all. Like you're not, you've got your targets like every other car dealer. What's your case from your own personal experience? Why should consumer consider purchasing EV as their next vehicle?
I mean, I think that what we've created in our store is we tailor to the consumer first and foremost. We reduce pain points and we guide the customer, and we want to make sure that they make their decision on their next vehicle, and for us not to force upon a vehicle. We like to educate them. We like to put the EV in front of them, and we've seen where they go, you know what? Wow, you're right. That information you just mentioned and my hesitations, they're all gone based off what you've mentioned and what we're reading. So I think that we have gasoline vehicles, obviously. We have electric vehicles, but we also have the in-between, which a lot of folks forget. We have the hybrids, and then we also have the hybrid plugins, which the hybrid and the hybrid plugins, they truly allow that consumer that's in between. They're just not sure. They're speculating. They're dabbling. They want to get into electric vehicles, and all of the answers make sense, and they're pretty much convinced, but they're just that little ounce of hesitation. And so then they hop into a hybrid where it has a battery, a larger battery with an electric powered motor that works together with the gasoline motor and powers the car together without the consumer having to really charge. You don't have to charge the vehicle or any of that. You just put gas in it and go. Then you have the hybrid plug-in, which is my favorite. And that's where you can still treat it the same way as the hybrid. You put gas in it and go. You don't necessarily have to charge that at all either, but it gives you the, hey, you know what, honey, I want to try out and charge it today, and I want to run it on fully electric for 40 miles. And it allows them to kind of gradually get into the electric vehicle world. And so I love the fact that we offer diversity and options for our consumers, because they can go with the in-between. And when they are ready, they can move to the next step.
Yeah, I think that's a powerful play as well, by way of making it where it's not all or nothing. I know there's other automakers, obviously, that are like, hey, it's going to be all or nothing for us by this time. The approach that Hyundai is taking, saying, we've got, to your point, we've got a diversity of options. You want gasoline, we've got it. You want plug-in hybrid, we've got it. You want full electric, we've got it. One final question, and it is, of your vehicle lineup, whether it's EV, plug-in, hybrid, or gas, doesn't matter. Of the Hyundai lineup, what are you driving home in today? What's the vehicle line in the Hyundai lineup? You're like, that's the one. That's the one I'm driving home today.
Yeah, great question. So I've had different Hyundais. I've almost tried them all. My current vehicle that I personally commute in is a Sonata hybrid, for fuel efficiency, obviously. And my commute's kind of all over the place. Sometimes I travel back home, which is about 120 miles one way, or sometimes I'll stay in town. And so being able to have the flexibility of the hybrid and being able to be on the go, and for me, works, versus if I switch to electric vehicle 100%, I'll face the challenges of, not having my car possibly charged all the way to get 120 miles from here and having to stop somewhere. So that's my current challenge, and that's the truth, right? For my current lifestyle.
Yeah.
But I'd love to be able to absolutely switch over to a fully electric, because I truly enjoy the vehicles. I truly enjoy driving them. What Hyundai has done with the Ioniq 5 and 6, they've designed the electric vehicles to truly drive like a regular car, like a gas car. Versus there's a lot of other automakers. They make great products, but what I've noticed, because I've driven the other ones, you have to change your driving habit. You have to change your driving style to adapt to the car. Versus with Ioniq 5 and 6, you don't. You can drive it the same way you drive a gasoline vehicle. You can change the modes and settings, customize it where it'll feel just like driving a gasoline vehicle. So that's why I'm excited. I can't wait to switch over. And that's definitely my next vehicle will be a Hyundai electric vehicle, 100%.
Love it, man. Moose, how can those listening or watching get in touch with you and connect?
Oh man, absolutely. You can. LinkedIn is probably the best way. I'm there. I'm active on there. I can definitely provide my email address, even my cell phone number, no problem. You can definitely give me a call, and I'd love to be able to make a difference. Like I said, I'd love to be able to help out dealers and other stores, and just share the knowledge. And I'm sure one day I may need some knowledge back in return. So I respect this business a lot. This business has helped myself. It's given my family wealth. It's given us what we have today. And I truly have a lot of love for this business, and that's why I guess it's a part of me is like, I want to give back to the business. I want to help the people that are trying to find their way in the business, or that's competing but want to start winning, and just things like that. And so, absolutely, I'm an open book.
Love it, man. Thank you so much for joining me on the Dealer Playbook podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Dealer Playbook podcast. If you enjoyed tuning in, please subscribe, share, and hit that like button. You can also join us and the DPB community on social media. Check back next week for a new Dealer Playbook episode. Thanks so much for joining.